Well, you know how Donald Trump's been whining and whining about how cold he is in the courtroom and that how he can't campaign like he wants to go to all of these states, but the trial is just preventing him from doing that. Well, Donald Trump had last Wednesday, he had Saturday, Sunday, and he had earlier today, Monday, to go do something other than sit in a trial and whine about how cold he was. And how did he spend that time? Golfing, 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 and then also posting. And he's been posting QAnon memes, QAnon videos, photos of him, memes with himself and Jesus holding his shoulders. And then Donald Trump sent out his daughter in law and his son to go on TV and then say how strong he is and how he goes and does all of these stops at bodegas and Chick-fil-A's and other locations. And they go, that's not manufactured. That's not manufactured. And we've showed each time how those are literally propaganda stunts like Saddam Hussein did and Gaddafi and Kim Jong-un. We'll break all of that down for you. We'll also break down for you that Rudy Giuliani earlier today went on TV, right-wing media, and this is what he said. He said, if MAGA Mike Johnson was smart, MAGA Mike Johnson should threaten President Zelensky of Ukraine to give dirt on President Biden and turn over a Biden file, or the MAGA Republican should refuse to give weapons to Ukraine. Where have I heard that extortion plot before? That sounds like a complete and utter confession, but here's the danger and threat, folks. You have a right-wing Supreme Court last week that seemed to be sympathetic to the idea that Donald Trump or anyone in that position could have absolute immunity. We had Judge Ludwig, a conservative right-wing judge, usually viewed as conservative as you get, join Michael Popak on Legal AF to break down just how wrong the right-wing Supreme Court is. As I've always said, these people are not conservative. Judge Ludwig is a conservative. This right-wing MAGA is just its own thing. It's a mess, and we will break it down. Also, Republicans killing puppies. Yes, we learned through another confession, this time by South Dakota Republican Governor Kristi Noem, that she killed her little puppy Cricket because she's a puppy killer. She's tried to then justify it by saying that the puppy was getting aggressive towards some of her other livestock, but then she talked about how she kills her livestock too, like she killed a baby goat, and she's killed her horse, and she's taken photos of herself doing it. Folks, it is very strange. And as you dig deeper, you start making connections with all of Donald Trump's statements about dogs. First off, Donald Trump is like one of the only presidents in United States of America history who didn't have a dog. 2, Donald Trump hates dogs. And 3, in almost all of his speeches and posts, he somehow mentions dogs, sweating like a dog, killed him like a dog, fired him like a dog, was a coward like a dog, died like a cowardly dog. When you start breaking this down and then seeing Kristi Noem also, remember there were those reports too about like Sarah Huckabee Sanders' brother like may have like hung a dog, like there was reporting about that out there. You start putting all of this together and you start thinking about perhaps the pathology of like serial killers here. Going back to what I said before, this MAGA stuff, it's not conservative. Like it is something very, very different. Trump also spent the weekend freaking out that RFK Jr. is taking votes away from him, and Donald Trump kept on posting and posting about that. We had the White House correspondent dinner. Colin Jost was the host, and then you had President Biden speak as well. Both I thought were incredibly funny. President Biden not only giving good jokes, but taking jokes, which is always a sign of confidence and leadership. We'll talk about that. And then some other news that not a lot of people are talking about. But like, again, we're very focused on data here at the Midas Touch Network. And when you look at swing states and voter registration, like actual voters in swing states, like Democrats are far outpacing Republicans in actual voter registration. And y'all remember back with those red wave narratives, one of the big data points that we had here that rebutted the red wave narrative was voter registration, early voter turnout data, party early voter turnout data. And that's the type of stuff that we focus on here. So in other words, we've got a lot to discuss. This is the Midas Touch podcast. I'm joined by Brett and Jordy. Jordy is returning from Papa duty, literally and figuratively. Good to have you back, Jordy. Brett, how are you doing?
Everything is going great. Everything is going great. Love watching the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Always like watching the president up there joking around and getting roasted, and the jokes about Trump. I thought Colin Jost did a good job. I know Donald Trump was not particularly happy about it, but hey, Donald Trump was not even tough enough to show up for one of those White House Correspondents' Dinners during his presidency. Like, lest we forget what an absolute coward and weakling this person is. And Ben, just going through all the things in your monologue there, it's just, how weird are these MAGA Republicans? When it comes down to it, it really goes beyond any sort of possible policy disagreements or anything. These are like actual damaged human beings, sociopathic, and that sociopathy shows itself in so many different forms. And the Kristi Noem story is the perfect example of that. I know that sent shockwaves through the internet and elsewhere over the weekend. It is absolutely horrifying. But every now and then, and honestly quite frequently, you get these windows into the psyche of these MAGA Republicans who we report on a daily basis. And when things like that happen, you go, oh, yes, of course, that makes sense. That goes along with their pathology. That is this all lines up. It all clicks into focus. Jordy, we missed you last week. Everything good? How you doing?
Everything's good. I'm glad to be back. And to your point, B, I mean, these MAGA Republicans have so isolated themselves and live in this true bubble of the MAGAverse that we like to call it here in the Midas Touch podcast, where they don't have people around them to tell them, hey, maybe that's a bad idea. They've just aligned themselves with yes men and yes women everywhere at every turn. And they expect that that's going to be like treated as how reality would match the expectations of what their inner circle and bubble says to them. But it's so far from the truth. It's like normal people in the real world. You could ask anybody on the street. Kristi Noem writing that in her book to promote her book, we'll get to the story, would be like, hey, maybe don't write about that. Maybe exclude that. But she surrounded herself with just such wackadoos in the MAGA, circle that they were either too scared or so isolated in this MAGA bubble to tell her, hey, maybe leave the dog unaliving out of the book, Kristi. I don't think that's a good thing to promote here.
Well, Jordy, I agree with you. And look, I'm glad that got attention, but far too frequently, we see the media reporting on their own flawed polling data, which directly contradicts the actual voting data that we've actually seen in the primaries, and that actually contradicts like other credible polling data. Yeah, I'm talking about CNN, but I'm not going to go into it. Versus what I think your role.
But I'm not going to name. I'm talking about CNN, but I'm not going to name names here.
Because what I think you should be doing, though, is just reporting the news. Not generating some bogus poll so you could report on your poll and get clicks that way. That's so problematic, and it's lazy. And what they should be doing is just talking about, I think, the contrast out there. What's President Biden doing? What's Donald Trump doing? Share the facts and use a normal journalistic prism to evaluate things and let the American people decide, but don't shy away from things. You can't just be, oh, it's Donald Trump. We should expect that he's going to be posting photos of himself with Jesus on his show. Like, duh, is that Donald? No, look, this is the leader of a major political party. You shouldn't be like, well, Donald Trump is going to be posting something that uses the F word and says F like the curse. Your political opponent then just makes up stuff and posts a QAnon death cult. That's just Trump being Trump. Why would we as a journalistic, that's my journalist voice. Why would we as a journalistic.
Sounds like a journalist.
Yeah, sure sounds like a journalist. Why would we as a journalistic enterprise, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend my time fact checking the reporting by Midas Touch that Donald Trump farted because Midas Touch is not naming who its source is, because normally that's what journalists do. Of course, all journalists give their source on anything. So I think I'm going to write the pro-Trump story about why he's not farting all over himself. And I'm going to say the reason is because Midas Touch is not divulging its sources. Now, I'm not even going to do a quick Google search. It's my journalist voice. I'm not even going to do
You're writing it to Mark Levin a little bit.
That's what happens. I'm not even going to do a quick Google search to like determine, or I'm not going to like actually look at MidasTouch.com. And I don't know, maybe I would see that like their panelists are like former federal prosecutors, former state prosecutors, former members of Congress, that they have multiple people who are actually in the courtroom. I mean, maybe I won't, maybe I'll just say, I don't know, that there's no source. So therefore I'm not going to post that Donald Trump did a QAnon video talking about how people submit to his authority. Like, look, I'm done with my journalistic voice. Sorry about that.
Everyone was really liking it. Everyone was saying more journalist voice.
I thought it was going too long, but then you did it another 30 seconds, and I'm like, oh, no, it's the right amount of journalist voice.
It's got better. Here's the thing. It's like, you see a lot of reporting online when people will speak.
It's like fine wine. It got better with age.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you're like he's still
summer
doing
of
this?
2006.
It's like it's like circa 2008 Family Guy when Peter bangs his knee and they just keep that shtick going of him going.
I remember that
way too long.
And for the first like 20 seconds, you're like, okay, enough of this. But by the time he's 6 minutes in, you're like, oh, this is fun.
I get it.
This is gold.
And here's the thing: when a lot of these legacy media companies report on Midas Touch, and they will go the anti-Trump organization, the anti-Trump this, the anti-Trump. It's like, listen, we're not anti-Trump because like we don't like his haircut. Okay, we're anti-Trump because he is a threat to our democracy. And I would hope everybody in the media takes the same sort of position, that your role is also to defend the democracy of this country, to defend our institutions, and to view Donald Trump as a threat to those institutions, not because we say so, but because he says so, and his actions point exactly in that exact direction. And I think at the Correspondents' Dinner, and we'll play some of the clips, I know people have probably seen a bunch of them, if not all of them by now, but I think that was kind of President Biden's message here. It's like, listen, we're not asking you to pick a side between Republicans and Democrats here. Mm-hmm. Our country's on the line, and you have a responsibility to tell folks exactly what's going on and to lay out the clear threat, and to not be worried about this game of both sides this, both sides that. Oh, well, I said a nice thing about this person, I guess I got to say a nice thing about Donald Trump. That's not how this works, okay? That time may have existed in the past. That's not the current political landscape. And if that's what you're doing, if that's how you're reporting on this moment when our democracy is at risk, you are doing the exact wrong thing, Ben.
Take a look at what he's posting. And again, he's not campaigning like he whines about when he's in court. He's just relying on the media when he's, does his PR stunts to amplify the disinformation. But here's what he's actually posting. This is a photo of Jesus, I think, holding Donald Trump's shoulders. And it says, "I'm praying for this man because he is fighting pure evil. God bless Trump," from an account that's Lara Women for Trump. And Trump reposted that image.
Lara Trump's
with
burner.
Jesus in the Oval Office. Like, could you imagine for a moment if President Biden posted that once? There would be mass outrage, mass hysteria in the media. What about this one that Donald Trump just posted from an account, Ultra MAGA Truther at Truther Think Tank? And just, the most basic research of who this person is, it says that they're a MAGA digital soldier, #Q, like QAnon. And this is a QAnon post. And Donald Trump is amplifying a death cult. We saw an analysis, what was it, 2 years ago, that said as of 2 years ago, Donald Trump had posted QAnon memes and amplified QAnon accounts over 500 times. By now, it's probably close to 1,000 times. And this is what he's posting. FJB, the F word, Joe Biden. Trump won 2020, which he didn't. #arrest Biden. #arrest Obama. #death penalty for pedophiles. #military tribunals for treason. This is what Trump is reposting. and he's reposting a message that says FJB, the F word, the curse. He stole the election. He let our troops get blown up in Afghanistan and checked his watch during their funeral. He forced us to be part of a science experiment. He locked up and tortured those who questioned the legitimacy of his election. He arrested political opponents. He groped women and children. I mean, just like blatantly false and defamatory statements that Trump could get sued for. And if you want to go, well, shouldn't President Biden sue Donald Trump for defamation? I mean, that's what Donald Trump ultimately wants, to do. And obviously, the president of the United States is not going to file a lawsuit. I mean, Donald Trump would do that, but like a dignified president of the United States like Biden's not going to even like acknowledge this. But look, the media should be saying, all those days where Donald Trump claims that he could be campaigning, he's not. He's posting these things. And then he posted this QAnon video boasting that nations and political leaders submitted to him. I can't play the video because Trump stole copyrighted music, and we're not going to play copyrighted music here. But it is a song from the French electronic music group M83, and it opens by proclaiming, "We are witnessing the destruction of the old guard." It was posted originally by a Trump person on Trump media. And basically what the video shows is like Trump with all of these world leaders. And it talks about the world leaders submitting to him. And like you have this like kind of eerie music, and it's like Canada submitted, the Vatican submitted, the Queen submitted. And then why I say it's QAnon is when the video comes to an end, it says, "Where we go one, we go all," which is the QAnon slogan. That's what Donald Trump's been posting in the past 24 hours. That, once again, I say, if any Democratic member of Congress, Senate, local office, whatever, of course, President Biden, posted anything like that, they would lose my support. I can't tell. I mean, I know it would be on the front page of every, major paper, how disqualifying it is. The person should step down. I'm just letting you know. I don't care how great I think President Biden may have been a president for the past 4 years. He would lose my support if he posted any of those things that I just shared with you, because I think those are disqualifying. It speaks to a larger significant issue where I would say that person cannot be trusted as a commander in chief with nuclear weapons, making any decisions at all. And yet you won't hear about this anywhere else but probably this show and MidasTouch.com. You won't hear about it anywhere else. Just think about that, Brett and Jordy.
Yeah, and this QAnon movement, which I know has been covered extensively, has been often kind of positioned as an adjacent movement to the Trump movement, that this is some sort of separate thing, this fringe movement of followers. Now, let me just read for you the description of QAnon. I know we've said this on the show, but I just want to hammer it home. Just what Trump means when he is saying, "Where we go one, where we go all." What Trump means when he is boosting QAnon accounts. This is what QAnon believes, and I'm reading directly here. Their core belief is that a cabal of satanic, cannibalistic child molesters is operating a global child sex trafficking ring that conspired against Donald Trump. Followers believe the Trump administration secretly fought the cabal of pedophiles and would conduct arrests and executions of thousands of cabal members on a day known as the Storm or the event. And of course, who do they view as all of these cabal members? Any Democrat, anyone in Hollywood who they don't like, any sort of other high-ranking government officials, business people who they don't like, medical experts who they don't like, who are telling people to do basic things like get vaccines and other things to be healthy and not die. These are the people who they put into this box as the cabal. And when you see the storm is coming, what Donald Trump is uplifting there is this idea that all of Donald Trump's enemies, or perceived enemies are going to be rounded up and executed publicly on live television. So, yes, I think it's a problem that a presidential candidate is promoting this stuff. And my overall point is that this is not adjacent to Trump world. They're one in the same. And they're one and the same with this MAGA Republican Party. To pledge allegiance to Donald Trump, all of this sort of election denialism, these are all branches of this QAnon movement that believes all of this crazy stuff.
And look, they're not even pledging allegiance to the flag anymore. They pledge allegiance to a Donald Trump flag, like quite literally Trump's face on it. They've changed the words of the Republicans. I'm not, yes, QAnon, but yes, the Republicans. They changed the lyrics to the national anthem. And when Trump goes out at these traveling fascist circus events that he calls rallies, they play the J6th anthem, not the national anthem. And a voice comes on in front of the crowd and says, "We will now be playing a song from the unfairly treated January 6th hostages." And it's a manipulated version of the national anthem. And so that's why when we talk about, like, this is not conservatism, what they're doing. This is some weird wannabe fascism, cult behavior. And Brett and Jordy and the Midas Mighty, while the media does not tell the public about things like we just showed you that Donald Trump posted. I mean, how hard would it be to just report on that? I mean, just tell people what it is that he's doing. They then spread his propaganda. So while Trump is not spending these days, while he's whining that he can't campaign and all of these things, he doesn't even have the money to campaign. He's spending the money on his private jets and on Melania's hairstylist and to basically fund his lifestyle. He's also spending it on legal fees. But the Republicans have no field offices, whereas President Biden has close to 500 field offices for his campaign, with the concentration in battleground states. So what Trump knows that he could rely on is the fact that our media in the United States is basically just a propaganda arm for those who give them access, and particularly for fascism. Like, take a look at the headline that Trump got from Politico, smiling his ass off, how Trump used the New York bodega visit to return to form. And it was a piece about how Donald Trump was an element and all these people in Harlem loved Trump. Think about it. Trump's got people in Harlem who love him. It took our reporters at MidasTouch.com to identify that a lot of the people in the crowd, I'm not saying all of the people in the crowd, a lot of them, and especially the ones that were loudest and leading the chants, were the New York Young Republicans. And so we were able to show a photo of the New York Young Republicans together meeting before the event. And then we could show you where they were in the crowd. And do we have the photo of Trump with the crowd? Take a look. Like, this is the most recent event. The guy you see right there is Vish Burra. That was a more recent event. He wore a hat that said American worker. Like that's how stupid they think the people are. And they acted like he was a black union supporter. And he's previously said, "I'm not black, I'm an Indian American." He was George Santos's right hand. He's like an ultra MAGA guy. And this is who the media was focusing on. And there were other New York Young Republican plants there leading the chants. But you see photos like this in the media. So it got me thinking, what does this kind of remind me of? And what this reminds me of is all of these scenes that we would see from authoritarians, like scenes like this from Saddam Hussein. And these would be these pre-planned scenes where they would bring over the supporters to run. You would show that there was a crowd, and you take a look at that. And then you took a look at some of the photos of Trump with this group of people, with the media amplifying it. And that's what that looks like. And I used to say this, the United States of America has a proud history of mocking that kind of behavior. Remember the movie with Sacha Baron Cohen, The Dictator, right? Like him walking through Manhattan like that, and that quite literally is almost what it looks like with Donald Trump there on his BS bodega visits, or when Trump shows up at a Chick-fil-A and then the media reports that there was a black woman who was there who gives Donald Trump a hug and says, "We all support you." And then the media reports black women are supporting Donald Trump because he stopped at a Chick-fil-A. It's like, come on, media. You want to do a scintilla of research? That's Michaela Montgomery who's there. She's she interned for the Republicans. She works for Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens, just like this Vish Burra guy is a MAGA guy who works with Steve Bannon. Like just do the bare minimum of research, and Trump was in Buckhead. He wasn't in Atlanta. He was in Buckhead to meet with billionaires because Trump wants to help his billionaire friends and create an oligarchy. He then planned a visit to a Chick-fil-A. Just think about that. How am I going to get black supporters? Let me stop at a Chick-fil-A and then have an African-American woman who works for the Republicans give me a hug. And then the media will be like, look, he's one of the people. He stopped at a Chick-fil-A. And it took our reporters to cover. No, she works for him. She works for the Republican Party. She was a Republican intern. She's worked for Republican people before. It's like, come on. They got to report. We need, and look, one of the things that we're doing here, unfortunately, more people are watching this than other forms of media now, which is good, is we all need you to just show the facts, show the data, show the photos. That's why we show you the material. And you need to be a discerning viewer right here. Like that guy right there, Ingrassa, right? That's Paul Ingrassa is like a speechwriter for Trump. Like he writes speeches for the Republican Party, and it shouldn't.
Look, there's Vish Burra again on the left in this photo wearing his American worker hat. Wow, this guy sure gets around in all of these photos that we see. He just happens to be at every event, Vish Burra, huh? And the MAGA media, what they do is exactly what the screenshot I have up for those listening. It's this is some fake journalist named Addison Smith, and he says, "Black New Yorker to Biden. I don't see you anywhere. I hope New York turns red because we're not voting for you." And this is Vish Burra, the MAGA operative who works with George Santos, has worked with Steve Bannon, has worked with Matt Gaetz, and who shows up at all of these. And in this case, he's wearing a hat that says American worker, as Ben said before. It's all a scam, and it's the same thing he does everywhere he goes. It's the same exact pattern. He has this, especially when he's in New York. He has the New York Young Republicans Club all get together and round up some people to stage these events. And instead of just reporting them as, wow, look at these crowds that we see, just dig in. Like, I'm just begging you, dig in for like 30 seconds and just please, and realize that the people on the right of this picture, for example, that is the picture of the New York Young Republicans Club, are the same people in the crowd that are chanting for Donald Trump in New York. It's really not hard to put it together. I wish I could say, and our researchers are geniuses here. Our team is incredible. I wish I could say this in particular was just genius, unbelievable work. How could they have figured this out? But it is quite literally staring you in the frickin' face. Okay, please, I am begging you.
We got a lot more to discuss on this episode of the Midas Touch podcast. Let's take our first quick break of the show.
Like many of us, you might think identity theft will never happen to you. But consider this. There's a new identity theft victim every 3 seconds in the US. That's over 15 million people by the end of this year. That's equal to the populations of New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago combined. Even worse, identity theft victims often don't even know they're victims. That's why LifeLock Identity Theft Protection alerts you to identity threats, even the ones that don't show up on your credit report, like data breaches, fraudulent bank transactions, loan and credit card applications, and crimes committed in your name. If your identity is stolen, your own dedicated LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. Look, I've recently signed up to LifeLock, and I can't even begin to explain how much better I feel knowing that there's a dedicated specialist looking out for me. We live in a crazy world, and protecting your identity needs to be at the top of your to-do list. LifeLock protects you in ways that you simply can't on your own. Save up to 25% your first year at LifeLock.com/Midas. That's LifeLock.com/Midas to save up to 25%. Identity theft protection starts here.
Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time, and Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Your metabolism is your body's engine, and it's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep up your energy and stave off those pesky cravings. The key to metabolic health is something called metabolic flexibility, and that's where Lumen really shines. It refers to your body's ability to efficiently switch between using different fuel sources like carbs and fats. There are preferred times to use each, and how well you can switch places you on the metabolic flexibility spectrum. After getting to know you through your breath, Lumen gives you a metabolic flex score that you can track and improve upon. So if you want to take the next step like I did in improving your health, here's what you got to do. Go to lumen.me, lumen.me, and use the code MIDAS, MEIDAS, to get $100 off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.ME, and then use the code MIDAS, MEIDAS, at checkout for $100 off. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Want to give a shout out to our pro-democracy sponsors right there. The discount codes are in the description below. Lumen is absolutely incredible, so check that out. And I want to also just share with you a quick personal story about LifeLock. So when I would do class actions on a lot of privacy breach cases, one of the remedies that we would have is to, when a company would either negligently or recklessly breach the privacy of consumers, we loved LifeLock so much and we knew how important of a tool it is. One of the ways that they would be able to kind of remedy the damage they cause is to provide money to consumers to get LifeLock, or to give free memberships to LifeLock to protect against the damages that they cause. That, I mean, free, they would have to pay for it. So I just know firsthand, like, what a powerful tool it is. I use it, you can imagine, based on the work that I do, and with, let's just say, I have a lot of friends, but there is a saying too that if you could judge yourself by your enemies as well sometimes, and I think y'all know who that is, who those people are, and so it protects me. They have really good prices as well. So anyway, I know I'm going on and on and on. It's like a double ad, but I thought it was at least important to share with you a personal story about it, so you know my connection and why I'm happy that they are sponsoring. So check out LifeLock. And again, in the descriptions below, you can get those discount codes. I recently was speaking with Karen Friedman Agnifilo. We'll talk more about it, her and I, tomorrow. She made a great point, Brett, that I didn't really hear anywhere else about the Trump trial in Manhattan. Donald Trump refused to stipulate to allow certain evidence to come in, like very basic custodial type evidence of, like, is this business record just an authentic record? Like, is this bank record authentic? Which in almost all criminal cases, everybody stipulates to, because why force the jury to be there longer? Why wait? Why would anybody want to drag this out? But Donald Trump's refused to stipulate to anything. So remember that witness last week, Ronna Graff, who testified for like 5 minutes about, was Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal like in Donald Trump's phone log or call log? And that was basically it. Normally, you wouldn't even need a witness like that. You would just stipulate that it's in the phone log. So in short, Donald Trump has extended this trial, Karen estimates, by perhaps even 3 to 4 weeks. by his own conduct. And then he's whining about how long the trial is. But he's the reason that he's making this trial longer by not stipulating, to basically streamline the process. So he's keeping himself, like, I haven't heard that point before, that he's keeping himself there longer by not stipulating to just basic thing that all criminal
it's
defendants.
it's his playbook, right? Like he does the thing,
whining.
yeah, and he complains, and it's always his fault ultimately. And even like once you unwind, like, oh, woe is me, I'm not here, and I'm not with Melania, my loving wife, and it's her birthday. Well, why are you in court, buddy? What were you trying to cover up with that hush money, huh? Let's go back to that, and let's see how much of a loving husband you were. I'm sure Melania loves the reason why you were in court was because of all these affairs you had while she was pregnant with your son. But not sure I'm buying this whole family man, woe is me, especially when in past years during your son's birthday, your wife's birthday, you weren't with them either, but you were doing rallies and things like that. So spare me the crocodile tears, and it's time to face the consequences for your actions. This is what it feels like. You have to be in a dingy courtroom. Yes, it may be cold, it may be hot. I don't know what the temperatures are in the courtroom. This is what every other criminal defendant has to go through. Buck up and stop your whining. And now you get to learn what it's like to go through our criminal justice system.
Look, Karen Priebe Magnifera worked in that courthouse for almost 30 years. She's been in that courtroom. She's like, okay, it's cold, but like, that's like life. I don't, the rest of us who aren't on golden toilets, like, you just go in and you show up. Like, she's like, I haven't once whined about the temperature. I haven't heard other lawyers whine about the temperature in the courtroom. Like, okay, yeah, so it's a little bit cold. Like,
it's a guy who's gotten every single break from our justice system, every single break that a defendant could possibly be afforded, Donald Trump has received. Yet when he is faced to do the bare minimum, he whines and whines and whines and whines. That's why my whole thing is always, don't give this guy an inch ever. Why ever give him an inch? He's going to whine no matter what. Even if you let him off for trial so that he could attend whatever he says he has to attend. So I know Justice Merchan last week allowed the gag order hearing to not be on Wednesday because he said he had rallies planned on Wednesday for the first time in a long time. And they moved that gag order hearing to Thursday. What happened anyway that night? All the Trump surrogates ended up attacking Justice Merchan and acting like that never happened, acting like the gag order hearing was still on Wednesday, even when that wasn't the case. So he's going to send his people to attack you anyway, the same way that he has attacked our justice system relentlessly. So it's like, enough. Like, don't stop giving this guy an extra inch. And that's why I like, though, that Justice Merchan overall has been keeping a tight grip of his court there in New York, and that this is really the first. Yeah, obviously he's gotten hit with really hard civil judgments against him, which is a monetary thing, which I think are big consequences in and of themselves. But this criminal court, it's a whole different ball game. And when people say, where are the consequences for Trump? Well, he is in criminal court right now for 30 plus felony charges. That is a big deal. That is a very, very serious thing that is happening right now to him.
Ben, feel free to shut me down with just a simple no. But do you think that there is a part of Trump that actually wants this court case to go on and be elongated because he simply doesn't have the money to actually fund rallies? So by proxy, he's actually using the media for these sound bites, knowing that they'll give him that clickable moment. And it's the only sort of paid advertisement that he could get for himself during this time.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think he wants to be in the courtroom, but he wants to be a victim. And
Right.
it allows him to be the ultimate victim. And so he can be in the courtroom and then go out and whine and say, I would have been in North Carolina. I would have been in this state. I would have been here. I would have been in Georgia. I would have been doing all of these things. No, you wouldn't. And how do we know you wouldn't? Because on the days where you're not in court, you're not there. You could have been there last Wednesday. You could have been there Saturday. You could have been there Sunday. You could have been there Monday, and you were golfing. And then he has, and the whole party's run by his family. Like, this is weird stuff. You have his weirdo son Eric and his weirdo daughter-in-law Lara, who
See the
steals
dumb
Tom
one?
Petty music, and she like plays, she steals these songs, and her voice is horrible, and she think like it's just strange stuff. And you've got like Eric saying, "Look, my daddy's got a lot of stamina. My daddy, I've never seen anything like his stamina in my life. He'll be in trial all day long." And I won't be mean. Sometimes people don't like when I do my mean impressions. do you could play?
I thought it was accurate. I thought it was
I know,
accurate.
but sometimes people say when I like. Anyway, just you could play Eric.
This has not been doing an impression. This is actually Eric.
Right, he's going all over the place, and his stamina, Maria, I've never seen anything like it in my life. I mean, I've just never seen it. He'll be in trial all day long, relentlessly being attacked by a corrupt judge, whose literally family is apparently profiting off of this whole thing, only to step out and go do events at bodegas and wake up and speak to union workers and go to Michigan and go to Pennsylvania and go to Ohio and go to all the other swing states. The guy is really a remarkable human being, and I love him to death, and I'm proud of him. And I think the whole world knows his backbone and his toughness, and it's exactly who we need behind the Resolute desk in Washington, D.C. It's the exact person we need in the Oval Office.
Well, I mean, again, this isn't a political thing. Like, I'm not even arguing over policy. Like, how weird is that? They're weirdos.
They're weird.
I mean,
and in the least mean way possible, why do I think that is the only form of communication that Eric has directly to Donald Trump is appearing on Maria's show?
Love me, Daddy. Please love me. Please, please love me, Daddy. Please.
It's such a good point. He goes, the judge's family is apparently profiting off of this thing. What are you talking about? They're not what do you even, lie. Donald Trump has great stamina. He's falling asleep. He's sleeping in the courtrroom and farting on himself in the courtroom. Like he does not have stamina. He's going to all of the swing states. He's not. He's quite literally not. He goes to the bodega. Well, we showed you that before. And then here's Lara Trump, and she goes, look, he goes to the bodega. That's not manufactured. He visits Chick-fil-A, not manufactured. And like their tell of being a liar is just so obvious too. Like who would even if it was not manufactured, why would you even have to say
that? I swear it wasn't a fake. It wasn't staged. I swear, not staged. So Donald Trump went to a bodega. Did I say not manufactured?
I would love to play poker with the Trumps.
Here's Lara.
This clip of Lara.
That's what they do at Trump rallies, except at Trump rallies, Sean, it's authentic. We don't manufacture anything like this. When Donald Trump visits a bodega in Harlem, that's not manufactured either. Whenever he visits a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, not manufactured.
So their whole strategy is just having them go out and just tell the biggest, most outrageous, and weirdest lies.
I got another one for you, Ben. I got another one for you. So this is Judge Jeanine on Fox. I'm not going to play the clip, but I'm going to read out what Judge Jeanine said on Fox just a couple days ago about Donald Trump. Jeanine, he goes to KFC or Chick-fil-A. They cheer him. This man is a hero. Now, I've talk about throwing around the word hero lightly. He's a hero because he goes to Kentucky Fried Chicken and Chick-fil-A. Like, what are we doing here? And I think
it's like fairly obviously racist too, right? Like, are we going to acknowledge?
Oh my goodness, it's the most racist.
It's like he's in Buckhead meeting with like white billionaires so he could like help them with their taxes while screwing people over. And he's like, all right, media, let me show you that black voters like me. I'm going to go to a KFC or a Chick-fil-A, and then they're going to hire an operative to give him a hug. Like what?
Please,
like
Ben, it's
what
the
are we
same
talking
network.
about? What are we talking about?
It's the same network where they had that host. I forget the guy's name. The guy, fake Pee Wee Herman, on Fox when Donald Trump was selling the sneakers, and he's like, this is making him really popular with black people because they love sneakers. I'm telling you, they love sneakers. And that was a big moment that we played on this show. And then he Fox, after the outrage, Fox, they just silently kind of didn't have him back on the network for like 3 weeks. And then he popped his Pee Wee Herman face back on the air a few weeks later. But,
the outrage, though, is also because finally there's a media network that's highlighting it and showing it. We have our people clipping it. And we
Yeah,
have
if
we have
if
all of the,
ASIN, if our team wasn't clipping this stuff, like most of this stuff wouldn't get out there. But I have to say, you know, there's an interesting dynamic in watching the Trump trial about the National Enquirer doing Donald Trump's bidding, burying bad stories, promoting Trump with the most ridiculous headlines imaginable, and having that on one side, and then watching Fox today, currently, RSBN, Newsmax, OAN, all these other pro-Trump stations doing the exact thing that the National Enquirer was doing for Donald Trump. It's like the same thing. It's the same kind of coverage.
with way more money and way more resources. I mean, I don't think the Inquirer was doing 9-figure type of revenue. I could be wrong about that, but Fox is doing 15 billion dollars in revenue a year, and they're putting those resources into that. And people wonder, how are we so divided? How, well, if an entity is going unchecked and putting $15 billion of resources, 15 billion into pushing disinformation, and then you have the other media that people go, oh, is that left media? No, that's corporate media. You have propaganda media and you have corporate media. That's basically it. And corporate media spreads Trump's propaganda. So if you wonder, why is it that, or why do people feel a certain way? It's because they're being fed a diet of absolute crap. And what's so interesting is seeing people recognize that they need to escape from that. Like, people are recognizing that they're being trapped in that cycle of crap. So like, no. I'm going to go to independent media and I'm going to watch it where they actually show me the facts and show me the data, which frankly is what I realize, our growth.
Once you are able to see what's going on, and granted, it's tough. If you grew up watching Fox in your home, and they have all the aesthetics of a news media channel, they have the desks, they have the sets, they have all the stuff, right?
People wearing suits,
they have the morning shows, right?
They're pretty, they're charismatic.
I could see how you could think this is legitimate news, right? Like you, I think we could all see that. But I think once you're able to kind of, once that veil is pierced and you realize I am being lied to, all that stuff that you may have liked before becomes the most offensive thing imaginable, because you realize that those people on the air are mocking you to your face every single day for profit. They think you are the scum of the earth, and you don't even have to take my word for it. You can look at their text messages in the court hearings and find out just how little that they think of you as a Fox watcher. That's the truth.
So one of Donald Trump's closest allies, Kristi Noem, a MAGA Republican governor from South Dakota, she released this excerpt from her book. It wasn't like someone discovered this like somewhere. Like, this is how she was promoting her book. Cricket was a wire hair pointer, about 14 months. I absolutely hated that dog. The dog was untrainable. At that moment, I realized I had to put her down. It was not a pleasant job, but it had to be done. And after it was over, I realized another unpleasant job needed to be done. And then she talks about killing her puppy and then killing a goat. And she wrote that this male goat she thought was nasty and mean and musky and rancid. So she killed it, and she dragged it into a gravel pit and hurried back to the gravel pit to put it down, because when she shot the goat, she didn't kill the goat right away. And this is a story that she wanted to share with people. Also, this comes after the scandal of her potentially having an affair with Trump aide Corey Lewandowski, and also her making weird commercials for like an orthodontist, like surgical cosmetic company, like in Texas. Like, it wasn't even in her state. And then she's been like trying to justify it with all of these posts. But what it got us to thinking about a little bit are kind of Trump's statements about dogs. And Trump's made like a lot of them over time. And I want to explain why I just think this bizarre and weird hatred of dogs. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that MAGA would hate dogs and want to kill dogs like this. But like, it is quite literally, when you read about the pathology of serial killers, like one of them is like just an unnatural hatred of dogs, killing dogs and abusing pets. And obviously, Kristi Noem talks about like that she killed a puppy. And Donald Trump's language makes it clear that he at least fantasizes about killing dogs, firing dogs, putting dogs down, that he thinks about dogs dying. Trump's one of the only presidents not to have a pet or a pet dog. The other two are President Polk and Andrew Johnson. Trump's known for hating dogs. He posted this about John Kelly, his own chief of staff. This is Trump's own chief of staff, and a very renowned military general. So Trump goes, John Kelly, by far the dumbest of my military people, just picked up the theme of the radical left's lying about Gold Star families and soldiers and his hatred of me. He was incapable of doing a good job. It was too much for him, and I couldn't stand the guy. So I fired him like a dog. He had no heart or respect for people, so I hit him hard. Made no difference to me. I mean, who talks like that? Again, this is what I go back to saying. That's not conservative. That's like a freaking sicko. This is what Donald Trump said about his own defense secretary, Mattis. Let's play this clip when he talked about him getting fired like a dog.
I disagree with Mattis very much. He was fired by President Obama. He was fired like a dog. He was fired.
Here he talks about, well, just play the next clip in order, Brent.
We'll just play a handful of them.
Just play.
Last night was a great night for the United States and for the world. A brutal killer, one who has caused so much hardship and death, has violently been eliminated. He will never again harm another innocent man, woman, or child. He died like a dog. He died like a coward.
All right, play another one.
Got to get out. You can't sit home. If you're sick as a dog, you say, darling, I got to make it. Even if you vote and then pass away, it's worth it.
Okay, let's do another one.
We are the only ones who are going to be able to stop them. We stopped them. We had them stopped cold. And they cheated like a bunch of dogs on the election.
And let's do this one where he talks about female dropping people like dog. Like they dropped a female, dropped them like a dog. I don't even know what he's saying.
Not sure he knows what dogs do. I'm going to say that.
They've got some problems, but if they go to another nation, they drop us like a dog, like a female drops a male after a date because he doesn't like her, right?
Like a female drops a male after a date, so they drop him like a dog, and he thinks that dogs die cowardly, that dogs sweat. They don't. Who talks about dogs like this? It's very strange. I want to talk a little bit about that pathology, but I also want to talk about some news about what President Biden's doing. I want to talk a little bit about the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Let's talk about that and more. Let's take our last quick break of the show.
If you thought houseplants were just for decoration, think again. NeoPX from Neoplants brings science and nature together to create a living, air-purifying powerhouse for your home. NeoPX is the world's first plant microbiome system bioengineered to purify the air in your home. Indoor air can be up to 5 times more polluted than outdoors, mainly due to harmful pollutants called VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, that are constantly emitted indoors from thousands of common household products like furniture, paint, cosmetics, and more. NeoPX was invented by PhD scientists to target 3 of the most harmful VOCs found in your home, and is up to 30 times better than a regular houseplant at fighting indoor air pollution. It is based on 5 years of research and development to enable NeoPX to capture and recycle VOCs into useful matter like sugar and amino acids. Every month, you just pour the bioengineered formula called Power Drops onto the plant's soil to supercharge NeoPX's air pollution capacity. NeoPX comes with a self-watering planter called the Shell, so you only have to water it every 2 to 3 weeks. My existing air purifiers at home make up for a fair amount of my electricity bill, but with NeoPX, I could get clean air with just some sun and water, and it looks great in my home. When you purchase NeoPX, you'll receive 6 Power Drop pouches, and to celebrate the launch, Neoplants is offering a 7th pouch free of charge. That's 1 extra month of pure air. So go to neoplants.com/Midas and the code will be applied automatically at checkout. Shipping available within the US and soon to many more countries. That's neoplants.com/Midas.
As you know, I'm a dad, and as the days go on, I'm learning that it's incredibly important what we give our children. Now, typically, children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise. They're filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy junk growing kids should frankly never eat. That's why Haya was created, the pediatrician-approved superpowered chewable vitamin. Now, while most children's vitamins are filled with 5 grams of sugar and can contribute to a variety of health issues, Haya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. Yet it tastes great and it's perfect for picky eaters. Haya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full body nourishment that our kids need with a yummy taste that they love. Formulated with the help of nutritional experts, Haya is pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others to help support immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and more. It's non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and everything else you could imagine. Now, Haya is designed for kids of all ages and sent straight to your door so parents have one less thing to worry about. Like I said, I'm a dad and I want to make sure that I give my child the best possible vitamins, and that's why I'm so happy that I've come across Haya Health. The ingredients are amazing and I don't have to worry about sugar or gummy junk because Haya Health is made without that stuff and it's still able to taste great. Now, we've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Now, to claim this deal, you have to go to hayahealth.com/Midas. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to hayahealth.com/Midas and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Shout out to our pro-democracy sponsors, y'all. This is my Neoplant right here. Look, this is sweet. This
Looking
is definitely
good.
awesome. Perfect for allergy season too. I mean, a purifier plant, gotta love that. Shout out Haya. We live these pro-democracy brands, folks. Check them out. Discount codes, links in bio, description in YouTube and in audio. Use our codes. Let them know we sent you. They're awesome. Shout out Neoplants, new sponsor. Shout out Haya.
As my friend Tom Mars, a renowned attorney in Arkansas, I was actually a real conservative, not a MAGA, as he said, safe to say that normal people don't develop so much hatred for a dog that they just decide one day to blow its brains out in a gravel pit. Psychotic serial killers who kill dogs before killing people. Jeffrey Dahmer, Albert DeSalvo, David Berkowitz, Dennis Rader, Edmund Kemper, and Ted Bundy. And this kind of behavior and hatred of dogs is part of a broader pathology. I did a whole video on it this morning as well, and it is notable that there is, Kristi Noem, Donald Trump's statement about dogs. As you start delving deeper, you start to find a trend here. And as I've said, it's just the bottom line is that these MAGA Republicans are not conservative. One of my
let me just say, not only that she did the act, which is horrific, the fact that she thought that this was a positive story to include in her book to show as an example of her toughness or her ability to make difficult decisions, like that makes it to me somehow like 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times sicker than even just the action. That this didn't come out of like some expose, but it came out of her own book of her bragging about it.
It wasn't a footnote. It wasn't a footnote. It was a paragraph. There
wasn't one editor who was like, maybe take out the part where you talk about throwing your dog in a
what I
gravel
mentioned earlier too. I mean, it's so sick and disgusting, but this is that MAGAverse. This this is like what Elon has sort of manufactured and created on Twitter now, with like all these MAGA lunatics just running wild and talking to each other in this echo chamber. It's just because they have no one to tell them no, that this is a bad idea. No, Christy, maybe it's not a great idea to have an affair after you preach, family values on the campaign trail. No, Christy, maybe it's not a great idea to do a dental commercial for Texas, whatever, out of your state, or just in general, just a weird thing for you to do. No, Christy, maybe it's not a great idea to talk about unaliving your dog as a show of making tough decisions. No, it's so weird and just beneath Americans overall, and sad and despicable that these people even exist within a modern day, party, a major party in the States. And it's just so upsetting, because I just want to get to the point where these people are normal again, where there are no MAGA Republican, where it's just Republican, Democrat. Let's talk about the issues. But sad to say, I don't think that's going to happen again. And we just have to go and continue to just preach pro-democracy values, because the people on the other side of this are sick people. Can't tell me otherwise.
Look, when I watch Donald Trump's events, so y'all don't have to, and I see him, change the national anthem and say the things too, I'm like hello, anybody else watching this thing? He's singing with the J6 insurrectionists, like hello. Kind of same thing. You see Rudy Giuliani today, where Giuliani was like, it's just deja vu. Remember when Trump and Giuliani threatened Zelensky, where Trump was impeached for that, and Lev and everybody else was saying, look what he was doing. Trump was threatening Zelensky, he was extorting Zelensky, that unless he dug up dirt or gave false information on Biden, that and by the way, connecting that to the Trump criminal trial in Manhattan, that's the same type of hush money stuff that Donald Trump ran with the National Enquirer. That's how he's embarrassing us on the national and said, I need you to catch and kill some stories on Biden to President Zelensky, or else I'm not. That's what he was doing. Or I'm not going to give you weapons, and I'm going to let Russia take over your country. That's why he's so disqualifying. And then today we got the clip of Giuliani. Here's what he said.
With Brennan, when they were hatching, when he was informed of Hillary coming up with the false plot, it should begin with him, and it should include Brennan, it should include Biden, the vice president, who approved it and helped out. They should bring over from Ukraine about 20 Ukrainian witnesses, I can get them, that are still being held there. A couple I found out very recently are in fear of death, and somebody should lean on Zelensky. You want another penny? Give us your Biden file.
Somebody should lean on President Zelensky. You want another penny? Hand us the Biden file. And again, that's why I said these people are not conservative. There's another C word for them. They're criminals. They're behaving and acting like criminals, and not good ones either. And again, it just makes a mockery of everything. Let me show you a real conservative. This is Judge Ludwig. This is one conservative.
Do you see what I'm putting up right now, Ben? This is the image. This was Trump's response when he was outed for doing literally exactly what Giuliani just suggested that Mike Johnson and the Republicans do, extorting Zelensky. And what did Donald Trump say? This is his note card. Remember his giant note cards? This is why anytime they try to make a comment about Biden for having note cards, or the press secretary for coming with notes, you're like, just shut up. Here's Trump's note. I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. This was what he was saying nonstop. I mean, not only is Rudy's that clip there, which I expect to be all over. I hope. I expect that to be all over the news shortly. It was just posted by our researchers. I hope that catches like wildfire. I think it's a very telling and important clip. Not only is he encouraging Mike Johnson to commit the same crimes that Donald Trump did in extorting Zelensky that got Donald Trump impeached the first time, but additionally, it is a confession of the crimes and the scheme of which he and Donald Trump participated in that they have denied. How could it not be?
And by the way, not to make this a thing, but when the story does inevitably go everywhere, just watch for the legacy media, not the Credit Minus Touch Network. I just want to put it out there for people to see, as I know the story should and will take off.
They'll just say, look at this clip. Look at this clip we found somewhere.
We just somewhere found this.
Let's take a look at this next clip from Judge Ludig interviewing with Michael Popak. I'd encourage everybody to watch the full interview of Judge Ludig. Like, when I went to law school, I mean, Judge Ludig was a circuit court judge. I think he was like the youngest circuit court judge ever to be appointed. And I looked up to and admire Judge Ludig then. I admire him now. He's a right-wing conservative judge, but I was able to find that his opinions were always well-researched. And this is what a real conservative, like when we use the terms conservative, conserving institutions is one of kind of the main things. That's why I always say, like, I don't call anyone in the right-wing MAGA conservative, because I consider myself more conservative than them. And I would traditionally, if you went through different types of, like if you gave me the test, you'd probably say, hey, he's progressive or he's liberal. But I like to say I'm still, I'm complex, and I want people who represent decency. And that's most important to me. But I clearly believe in fundamental things like women's reproductive rights. That's, an absolute for me. I think, LGBTQ plus rights, absolute. Human decency, not punching down on marginalized communities, treating all human beings with dignity, pro-democracy, making sure seniors, veterans are protected, focusing on wages for workers, making healthcare accessible and affordable, all important to me. I believe in conserving institutions. I don't want to rip down. I may disagree with some of the approaches and policies of the FBI and the DOJ. I don't agree with them on everything. I don't think you should abolish the DOJ, abolish the FBI, abolish the Department of Education. Those aren't conservative positions. Those are quite, like, literally the most nihilistic, anti-conservative positions imaginable. So anyway, let me show you what a real conservative looks like. And here's what he had to say in his interview with Michael Popak. And this is why I always say this community here at the Midas Touch Network is very inclusive and big and broad in our reach, from people who may disagree on political things. Fundamentally, it's our democracy that unites us. Like in this clip right here, listen to Judge Ludig, a real conservative.
And this is about the immunity arguments in the Supreme Court.
You made a statement, Judge, in your social media post, and you used a phrase that stopped me in my tracks. I think I lost my breath when I read it, which is that you're afraid that if, as we've talked about for the last 30 minutes, that if the Supreme Court, and it's majority of the Supreme Court, we know who won't be on that side of it, make the decisions that you think they're going to make, that it could lead to America being unsold, S-O-U-L, unsold, the unsoling of America, and ripping away of the foundations and principles of our constitutional republic. What do you mean by that? What did you see that makes you feel that way?
Well, it's not so much what I saw or felt. It's what I know. And as we began at the top of the hour, America's democracy and rule of law is its heart and soul. Not just its heart, but also its soul, Michael. And if a president of the United States of America cannot be held accountable under the Constitution of the United States for having attempted to overturn an election that he lost fair and square, remain in power, and all the while preventing, for the first time in American history, the peaceful transfer of power, then that is to cut the heart and soul out of America's democracy and the rule of law. To me, that's self-evident.
It's a great interview by Michael Popak, and I encourage everybody, you can watch that on our YouTube channel. And you could also listen to it on the Legal AF podcast, which is anywhere you find this podcast. I'm sure everybody who listens to the Midas Touch podcast listens to Legal AF, but if for some reason that slipped through the cracks, make sure that you add the Legal AF podcast and you can listen to that right there. Shall we talk some White House Correspondents' Dinner, you guys? I'm sure people have seen these clips a bunch of times at this point, so I'm not going to dwell too much on them, but there are a few points I want to make here. First, the fact that we have a White House Correspondents' Dinner in the first place, the fact that we have a free press in the first place. I want to just remind everybody that during the Trump presidency, he refused to show for the event at all. He never showed up, not once. In 2017, when Hassan Minhaj was the host, in 2018, when Michelle Wolf was the host, both from The Daily Show. Not only that, when Michelle Wolf was telling jokes about Donald Trump's own staffers and stuff walked out of the room in disgust while she was joking about him because they cannot take a joke. And I think the way, someone's ability to kind of be self-deprecating, someone's ability to take a joke, I think actually shows a lot about their character at the end of the day. And you have these Trump people walking out. Then Trump, again, didn't show in 2019. And they didn't even have a comedian that year because of all the kind of backlash from the year before. And then it was canceled 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic. We had Colin Jost this year, who does the Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. I'll show just a couple clips from him. Here he's talking about how crazy it is that the race is this close, given everything that's going on. And he mentions a bit of our reporting in here, so I'll play this for you.
There's an election 6 extremely long months from now. So let me see if I can summarize where this race stands at this moment. The Republican candidate for president owes $500 million in fines for bank fraud and is currently spending his days farting himself awake during a porn star hush money trial, and the race is tied? The race is tied. Nothing makes sense anymore. The candidate, who is a famous New York City playboy, took abortion rights away, and the guy who's trying to give you your abortion rights back is an 80-year-old Catholic. How does that make sense?
And yet Colin Jost, he was, throwing punches at President Biden. He was doing it at Donald Trump. I thought it was an equal opportunity roast there. But all jokes aside, it was this moment at the end from Jost that I think resonated with me the most. And I think it's something that transcends any sort of party lines.
But my grandfather, a Staten Island firefighter, voted for you, Mr. President. He voted for you in the last election that he ever voted in. I mean, I'm sure someone else will vote twice in this election using his name, but that's just how the Democratic machine works. He voted for you, and the reason that he voted for you is because you're a decent man. My grandpa voted for decency, and decency is why we're all here tonight. Decency is how we're able to be here tonight. Decency is how we're able to make jokes about each other and one of us doesn't go to prison after. We go to the Newsmax after party.
Here's President Biden speaking about the issue of age in the election.
And yes, age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old. Well, I feel great. I really feel great. I'm campaigning all over the country. Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. I've always done well in the original 13 colonies. And speaking of history, did you hear what Donald just said about the major Civil War battle? Quote, Gettysburg, wow. Trump's speech was so embarrassing, the statue of Robert E. Lee surrendered again.
He was really good. Biden was really, really, really good on stage. Colin Jost was good too, but honestly, President Biden was great. And just like Colin Jost, you know, all the jokes aside, I think President Biden's message to the press at the end was the most powerful moment from his speech.
A defeated former president has made no secret of his attack on our democracy. He said he wants to be a dictator on day one, and so much more. He tells supporters he is their revenge and retribution. When in God's name have you ever heard of another president say something like that? And he promised a bloodbath when he loses again. We have to take this seriously. 8 years ago, you could have written off it as just Trump talk, but no longer, not after January 6th. I'm sincerely not asking of you to take sides, but asking you to rise up to the seriousness of the moment. Move past the horse race numbers and the gotcha moments and the distractions, the sideshows that have come to dominate and sensationalize our politics. And focus on what's actually at stake. And I think in your hearts you know it was at stake. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every single one of us has a role to play, a serious role to play, in making sure democracy endures, American democracy. I have my role, but with all due respect, so do you. In the age of disinformation, credible information that people can trust is more important than ever. And that makes you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, makes you more important than ever. So tonight, I'd like to make a toast.
It's such an important message because what folks need to realize as they're going to these parties in DC, as they're enjoying themselves at this event, is that if Donald Trump or someone like him were to come to power in this country, if Donald Trump were to get back into the Oval Office, you likely would not even be able to do your job anymore. You could be prosecuted for doing your job. If you have a TV show, you could be kicked off the air potentially. If you write for a newspaper or a magazine and you are critical of a Donald Trump and he is in power and he has no guardrails, guess what's going to happen to you? So you have to understand the stakes. And that's why I think it was so crucial that President Biden right there laid out the stakes. And then just from a point of view of how do people react to taking a joke, like I said before. First, here is President Biden laughing at an SNL sketch that was making fun of him during the event. You see him enjoying kind of being ribbed by SNL there. Then you see President Biden here thanking Colin Jost after the roast at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Colin, you did a hell of a job hosting this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner. I still think Scarlett has you beat for funniest in the family, but last night I bet you made her proud. Let's compare that here to Donald Trump's reaction to being made fun of at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was really bad. Colin Jost bombed, and Crooked Joe was an absolute disaster. Doesn't get much worse than this. It's about your character, right? It's about your character. And I think that contrast right there sums it up. Before we head out, I want to make sure that I give you some updates on some other good news out there. Some good news like Democrats outpacing Republicans in voter registration in a key battleground state. Can you guess the state? Let's see in the comments. Can you guess the state? If you guessed Georgia, you would be correct. According to this new report by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Democrats are outpacing Republicans when it comes to voter registration in Georgia following the 2020 election. Since then, Democrats have registered 13,500 more voters in Georgia than Republicans. And a lot of this includes Americans who are moving into Georgia and are voting in the state for the first time this year. Remember, find me 11,780 votes. Well, more people have moved into the state that are Democrats since then, more than that number. And so that's why we like to look at the data. We like to look at what are the actual numbers showing? What are the voter registration showing? What are the people who place votes showing, rather than these sorts of polls? Something interesting to watch, Matt Gaetz has a Republican challenger now that is apparently backed by Kevin McCarthy, kind of in secret right now. So that's something to look out for over there. We saw Peter Navarro's second bid this morning to be released from his 4-month prison sentence, to show you how weak these people are, has been denied by the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts had originally denied it. Now the court has denied it when he asked for the full court to view. But perhaps most importantly on this list, something that is certainly not getting enough attention, and that's Young America's Wealth Boom. I will give credit to Axios for their reporting of this right here. And it's a pretty stunning statistic that I want to make sure that you all know so that you could share this with your friends and family. The average household wealth for those under 40 in the US is up 49% from its pre-pandemic level. So we're not including the pandemic here. From before the pandemic, the average household wealth for those under 40 in the US is up 49% from before the pandemic. Young households have not seen this sort of wealth growth since the Fed started tracking its data in the first place in 1989. Millennials, I know Ben is going to be very upset by this definition, but those currently aged 27 to 43 saw their wealth double over this period. And that wealth includes things like a household's assets, stocks, bank accounts, real estate, minus, of course, liabilities like mortgages and student loan debt. The average housing wealth rose $22,000 as home ownership rose and home prices rose. Liquid assets climbed, courtesy of leftover savings from pandemic relief and higher wages. And the value of the group's financial assets, mostly stocks and mutual funds, increased by $31,000. At the same time, you saw non-housing debt in this group fall by $5,000. So that's more money in the pockets for millennials. And that's a good sign anytime we're seeing the wealth gap shrinking. And I think that's what we're seeing under Bidenomics. And frankly, that's why we're seeing all these billionaires kind of freak out over the idea of a second Biden term, because Biden actually is implementing taxes on super rich people. And he wants to let those Trump tax cuts for the 1% expire. Things that Trump openly goes out to his Mar-a-Lago base when he doesn't realize that he's being recorded at his country club and goes, I made you rich people so much richer, right? And I'm going to do it again. I'm fighting for you. He says that openly at his country club in front of his gold-plated walls with his gold-plated toilet behind him. He is telling millionaires and billionaires that his goal when he gets into the White House is to make them richer. So it's important that we draw that contrast as to what policies are working for which Americans and why we see a network like Fox pouring billions of dollars into their propaganda. It's for a reason. And I think in a lot of ways, it's for money and it's for power, which Donald Trump has promised them. It's not,
and it's their perceived view that it's going to help them. But the very first thing that history shows over and over again is they're coming for you. You may not be first, you may be first, but they're going to be coming for you. And I like that President Biden draws the contrast between pro-democracy and this fascism of MAGA and wannabe fascism. President Biden draws the contrast between his view of making the economy work like for the workers in Scranton versus Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago kind of country club view of this country, if you even believe it could have any type of coherent view at all. And then it boils down to normalcy as well. I still think that we are, early in the process, although we're getting towards, May. I think more and more people are going to be paying attention. And so I think it's just important right now, more than ever, we keep growing this independent media platform. So please tell friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, neighbors, anybody you know, the best way you can help us out here at the network is to help us grow this network. And that's word of mouth, word of text, word of email, word of social media. Let people know, share the videos that we release every day. Share this podcast with everybody. Share this YouTube video. Subscribe to the Midas Touch podcast as well. Wherever you get audio podcasts, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Help us get to 3 million subscribers. It's free to subscribe, and you may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. So hit subscribe. Thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors. Remember that story I shared about LifeLock in particular, but all of our pro-democracy sponsors. The discount codes are in the description below. Click on them. It's great to have pro-democracy sponsors with products and services that we love here. And Jordy does a good job curating those for you. So check those out. To everyone who bought the emojis and the memberships on YouTube, thank you very much for that. And then finally, one of the best ways you can help as well, although no pressure here at all, is by becoming a member of our Patreon. And become a member there. You get exclusive content like we're going to do an after show after this that I hope you will enjoy. But go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. There are even some packages at patreon.com/MeidasTouch where you could become an honorary producer and your name shows up at the end of the episode. So you will forever have your name on a Midas Touch official podcast, like all of the names on this list. But then there are other packages as well. But everybody gets access to the after show content regardless. So one more time, it's patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Thank you, everybody, for watching it. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty!
The Midas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Midas Mighty. Let's use our power well.